I am coming up on 5 years as a nurse practitioner, and it is just truly mind-blowing and so perplexing to say because I just can't believe that we are already here embarking on 5 years. I find myself though asking all the time, was going back to school to become a nurse practitioner really worth it? Was the tears worth it? The late nights, early mornings, the driving an hour to get to a clinical rotation, was it all worth it? We know on social media that there has been countless conversations about, is nurse practitioner the way to go? Is the job market saturated for nurse practitioners? Are nurse practitioners actually making money? Just a lot of discussions about whether becoming a nurse practitioner really just elevates you, or does people feel like this is something that they just have to do in the nursing world to be, I don't know, get a degree, get a stepping stone. So today I want to share with y'all my honest reflection after 5 years of, was nurse practitioner school really worth it? What would I do differently? What are the pros and cons of my journey? And if you're a nurse who is watching this video, who is deciding or trying to decide if they want to become a nurse practitioner or if getting their master's degree is the next stepping stone for you, I hope this video and the information that I share gives you a little bit more insight to help you make your decision. Hey y'all, my name is Brianna. I am a family nurse practitioner specializing in GI, and welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, welcome. This page is all about becoming the best nurse practitioner I can be, the best steward of God, the best wife, the best mommy, but also having a life and going to our next elevation. I'm sharing with you guys all of my hobbies, reading Black authors, fashion, fragrances and scents, just lifestyle overall. So if that's something that interests you, don't forget to like and subscribe, share with your friends, and stay tuned for the ride. So just a little context, before I became a nurse practitioner, I was a nurse, obviously. I graduated with my nursing degree in 2015. I have worked a little bit of everywhere, which kind of gave me also just a foundation to try to figure out what part of nurse practitionership do I want to be in, right? And so I have worked, my first job was at a critical care SNF. My first job, my second job, I worked on cardiac med surg, and it was such a good foundation to just being able to really shell out the skills, right? IV skills, medication, learning telemetry, just all those kinds of things. From cardiac med surg, I went on to be in trauma certified. That was my jam. Even though it's busy, even though there's a lot of high emotions and things going on, I always felt accomplished when I left the shift, just because of all the people that we help. Being the first person that the first person that the patient sees, basically. But learning all the trauma skills. I continued into trauma, right, and worked in DC. But once I started school, I realized that maybe it's probably not the best place to be while I have to work and go to school. And so I then transferred over or got a job in pediatrics working in pre-op and PACU, mostly pre-op, 9 to 9, which was amazing for my school schedule. That I feel like was the best move for me. And so I literally have worked between birth and death, which was why I became a family nurse practitioner instead of specializing in anything else. I also wanted to make sure I could jump through places. My first nurse practitioner job was in general surgery. I'm in GI now. I've been in a lot of specialties. I've not done primary care. It's not really something that I would like to do. And so being a family nurse practitioner just gave me range to be able to do that. So what made me actually choose to go back to school to become a nurse practitioner? One, I feel like it was a natural progression for myself. If you asked me as a child what I wanted to do, it was always like, oh, pediatrician, or I wanted to be a doctor or something of that nature. So when I started school, I started as a biology major, quickly found out that that's probably not the route I wanted to go, and switched my major to nursing, which was a better fit for me. I love patient education. I love knowing the why behind the disease process, which you learn in your master's program. But also I wanted more autonomy. And since I didn't want to become a doctor or anything like that, I feel like it was either you become a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner. Well, I'm already a nurse, so nurse practitioner made sense. So I went back for my nurse practitioner degree. And of course, like a lot of students that I know, I worked throughout school, which meant juggling work, personal life, exams, tests, clinical rotations, all of the things. But I do believe that it was worth it. So after graduating my master's program, I was very fortunate to be able to just slide into a nurse practitioner role. I know that is not the story for everyone. However, because of where I worked, again, I worked in pre-op, so I knew all the surgeons coming in and out, absolutely things that I wanted to do, because one of the things that I always told myself is I wanted to either do post-op surgeries with plastic surgery or work in a plastic surgery office or something of that nature. So the fact that I was able to get my first job in general surgery, chef's kiss. I networked my butt off. I used to walk around and ask them surgeons, hey, anybody looking for a nurse practitioner? Y'all looking for a nurse practitioner? I graduated this many months. And just so happens that the general surgery surgeons who I loved down had a position opening. And so I was able to smoothly transition. I didn't have to do a lot of stuff because I already worked within the hospital. So outside of just getting my nurse practitioner licenses and all of that, I already had CPR, all of those things. So it was an absolutely true smooth transition. What I will say is that networking can take you really far. I do feel like your resume also speaks for itself. And I think because they were familiar with me and my work ethic in pre-op and in PACU with their patients and patient education and getting them discharged and all of those things, they were able to trust the candidate that I was. But the networking really put me over the edge. So they knew who I was. They knew the work ethic. So it's just like, why not? It's a no-brainer to hire this young lady, right? Also, we know that there's a learning curve when you come from being a nurse to being a nurse practitioner, because like I said, you have more autonomy. You are the person making the decisions. So you have to be able to showcase that someone can trust you to make those decisions for their patients after surgery, which is very critical. Again, they got to see my work ethic. They got to see me thinking quick on my feet, my decision making, all of those things. So I really think that made it very easy for me to step into my first role. They were so welcoming. I got to be in the OR for my orientation. I got to round and do a couple of other things, sit with residents, talk with them. It was just a really good experience for my first job as a nurse practitioner. So what I want you guys to take away from that is that networking is absolutely one of the greatest keys that you can use, right? Because it can showcase a person knowing you, knowing your character, knowing your work ethic, knowing what they can trust you with. And so that can carry you into rooms and really land your first position. So work on your networking skills. Work on being the person who is not scared to talk to doctors and talk about positions that they might have come available. Just talk to them. Most of them are really nice. Some people are not as nice as others, but you can always try. All right, so many things that I appreciate about being a nurse practitioner. Currently, I am working strictly remote in gastroenterology. I do not have to go into the office. I'm not hybrid, none of that stuff. I had to work to get here, but the position that I'm in now is very invaluable to me. Why? Because it allows me to show up and do the things that I would like to do outside of my career. Whether that is making breakfast for my husband and my son, making dinner, picking my son up from school. I think I shared with you guys previously that I used to commute back and forth to work, and when my son was a lot smaller, I used to feel like a part-time mom because I would leave before he was up, or maybe he would only see a glimpse of me, and then when I get home, it's dinner and bedtime, and I really felt a way about that. So now the job and position that I have is really invaluable with just making sure that I'm able to show up for the things that I deem very important to me. I also have every weekend off and most holidays. So not having to fight for my life as far as holidays are concerned and wanting to spend that time with my family. Another benefit is professional growth. I think over the years and being in different specialties, it has allowed me to dibble and dabble in a lot of educational topics. I'm able to research different things, learn different disease processes, what that looks like on a small or grander scale, whether that has to do with surgery, whether that has to do with anesthesia, because I did work in pre-anesthesia testing as well, and then also gastroenterology. So I feel like it is allowing me to be a more well-rounded nurse practitioner, which can only take me to new heights and very far, I feel. And of course, the biggest one would have to be the financial growth. I think as a nurse, before I became a nurse practitioner, I was probably making, this was in, when did I become a nurse practitioner? 2000, it's been 5 years. So 2020 or 2021. So prior to that, I was in nursing, of course. And I think I was probably making mid 80s. And of course, I know a lot of people will say, you could have been making more than that. I absolutely could have doing contract, could have been doing PRN, but I stayed in my job because it is what worked for me at the time. So we were in a hospital setting, of course, and it was best for me with school, I feel. However, I was able to literally jump my salary about 30%. So I went from not making six figures to making six figures. I also received a raise right after that. I just got in right around the time they were reassessing. I had worked 6 months, so I was able to get things reassessed and get a raise. And so that for me is, again, invaluable. It also happened right around the time where my husband and I were buying our first home. We were getting married. My son came right after that. And so it really helped for a two-income household to be able to embark on new things like being a homeowner, a parent, savings, furnishing the home, all of those kinds of things. So I was really blessed to be able to elevate financially in that way. Of course, there are some cons to being a nurse practitioner. I talked about this on my Instagram. But one of the things that I really miss is being able to work 12-hour shifts, 3 days, and going about my business. I absolutely loathe the fact that I might have to take PTO or take a half a day for an appointment instead of doing it on the days that I'm already off. Currently, I'm working 8 to 4:30, and while that allows me to get off and go and pick up my son, there are some days where I'm just like, I just want to be off, child. I don't want to work 5 days a week, honey. I would love to just stack my 3 days and then be off for 6 and just have some flexibility with that, knowing that I can go to a happy hour if I want, or I can get caught up on laundry if I so choose, or do things around the house. Doing things that are confined to 48-hour weekends that I always feel should be longer is just, it don't be sitting well with me, y'all. It just don't. And so that for me is one of the biggest cons. Another con is when you worked your 12-hour shifts, you had days where if you wasn't going to be doing anything, you could literally pick up a shift. 4 hours, you could work 8 hours and get you some extra money. I cannot do that. And so there are some things, it's just like they used to talk about nurse math. Oh, is it one shift is like an iPhone, or another shift is like an iPad or an LV bag or some whatever, blah. Those are the days that I miss because I used to really rake in the overtime, but I haven't quite been able to do that. And there are some things that are more important. And to me, that is being present for my family. So I would not take on doing another shift somewhere when I'm already working Monday through Friday. And don't get me wrong, some people love the traditional schedule, the Monday through Friday. It works for them. Whatever works for you. I'm not bashing it. I work it every day. I just miss my 12 hours. And I think that's okay to say that. Two things can be true. But as far as picking up extra shifts or getting another job, that's not really an option for me because my family comes first. So for me, it's an equal trade-off. It just works. Now let's talk about the school that I chose. Of course, everybody knows that I graduated from Walden University, and I think choosing a school, the conversation deserves transparency. While people feel like the online programs like Walden, Chamberlain, or some other places are degree meals, which for Chamberlain, I might have to agree with that, and I'll talk about that in a second. My experience at Walden wasn't terrible. If you ask me would I choose Walden again, my answer would be no. Let's talk about why. So the first thing I want to say about the online schools is that they are very alluring to the regular person who probably has to work during their program. They are designed to say, hey, you can still have a life and go to school and get a degree, right? They are promoted towards the adult person. With that being said, I think Chamberlain, for me, I had absolutely the worst experience. I don't think that 8-week classes are long enough to be able to learn freaking anything. You're literally on the fast track, and it's like you end one class on a Saturday and start a whole nother class on a Sunday, and that's just bananas. I don't remember how long my classes were at Walden, but I would say it was a little longer than 8 weeks. I would say maybe 12, or I don't know, but it was a little bit longer than the 8 weeks. I will say that. Another thing that I think, as far as Chamberlain is concerned, I'm just going to go ahead and say that they stole my money, child. And that's it. And I've seen a lot of other people talk about Chamberlain and their practices and things that they do or don't do or not are very honest about. Anyways, again, I think in my video from 7 years ago, I talked about what happened with Chamberlain and just being able to go there and get all the way to the point where I was about to start clinical and being dismissed from the program. My GPA fell below what their required was for masters in nursing. However, I also had a life event. And when I tried to appeal the life event, did all of the things, submitted all the pictures and stuff like that, I never heard from anybody about what happened. Emailing people, finding their emails, calling these people, leaving messages. They never emailed me back, and that's it. So I literally had to start over at Walden, and that really left a bad taste in my mouth, because why don't you have working communications for adults to be able to reach you about what needs to be done next as an appeal? My appeal was never heard, just things. And if that has happened to anyone else, I really empathize with you, and I'm sorry that that happened to you, because they never gave me a sorry, so I just feel like we can be empathetic to each other. But that really turned me off from online schools. We can talk about Walden and how that experience was a little bit different for me. Walden specifically, I didn't have a lot of issues. Of course, the application process was seamless. The only thing I would say that I don't like about Walden, or I didn't, is that the person or the recruiter who talked to me told me that there were opportunities for scholarships for nursing students. They were only available for bachelor students and not for masters. And I feel like they left that out. But I was already enrolled in the program after I found that out. I could have not gone, but I really just wanted to finish what I started. I was already halfway through with Chamberlain. Having to start over midway was a lot for me. So I just wanted to get done. So that's one of the things that I did not like about Walden. The other thing that I think schools really get wrong is the fact that you guys are making people who are working and going to school, adding to their load by having them find their own clinical preceptorship rotations. I think a lot of schools get this wrong. There are a lot of schools who help their students. And when I say help, I do mean help them or place them somewhere. Not giving them a list and having them call, email, show up to places. I'm not talking about that. There are some schools who have strategic systems in place to help their students. And I think that is freaking lovely, because finding a clinical rotation was the bane of my existence, especially coming off of around COVID. Let's be very clear about that. So that it was 10 times harder. People did not want to take extra people in their offices. You really had to prove yourself. I had to do my network. It was just a lot of stuff that I could do without. I think schools get that wrong. And if you're going to promote yourself as a school that works with life and being an adult where you can go to school and still have flexibility because it's an online program and all that stuff, make that easier, because that's where you guys are failing. Another thing I would consider is the cost of the program. These online schools, they are really expensive, and I wish I would have sat down and not tried to go at things so fast so that I could do my research, because you could probably go to a state school, get in-state tuition, and probably have a load of scholarships or grants that you could get as a nursing student in a master's program, whatever the case may be. And so I was not considering it. I was literally like, I'm gonna take out loans for this anyway. And now we in a load of student loan debt, which wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I wish that I was smarter and did my baseline research about, one, the cost of the schools that I chose, Two, figuring out what other options I had statewide, because there are some good nursing programs in the state. Now, I don't know if they would have been fully online or not. I did not do my research, and that's one thing that I regret. So if you're watching this, please do your research about state schools versus online schools, what they offer as far as financials is concerned. Can you get a scholarship? Can you get a grant? I hate that I am a Black woman who wanted to excel, did not come from financial literacy, and have loads of student loan debt. Something that I'm getting through, but it's just a thing, and I don't want anybody to have to go through that. So when we talk about becoming a nurse practitioner, a lot of people want to know the ROI, or return on investment. Was the return on investment worth it? For me, absolutely. Couple of things that I already mentioned at the beginning of this video. I was able to increase my salary about 30% my first year. It has only increased every year that I've been a nurse practitioner. So for that alone, financial stability. Secondly, career flexibility. I have been able to move and get into specialties that people wouldn't normally be able to do. One, with my background in education and the places that I have worked previously as a nurse. And I want to let you know that your nursing experience absolutely does help with being a nurse practitioner. This is why I always stress that when nurses go from getting their bachelor's and have not worked on the floor, I don't agree with that at all. The experience that I have garnered as a nurse has only made me a stronger nurse practitioner. So the career flexibility that I received from being a nurse practitioner, but also just my added experience as a nurse, definitely worth the return on investment. There are multiple opportunities that you can get a job. You can be telehealth. Obviously, I'm telehealth, fully remote. Specialty clinics, surgery, acute care, hospital, whatever you like. A multitude of opportunities. And so, again, I know that a lot of people talk about how sometimes they cannot get jobs or might be oversaturated in that area. And that is very well true. But from my experience, I have not had any issue with getting any job I wanted. And so that investment is great. Right now, again, I'm working remote, and it is the most amazing thing for me at this stage in my life. And so I absolutely think the return on investment going to nurse practitioner school and becoming a nurse practitioner was absolutely worth it. So after almost 5 years as a nurse practitioner, was going back to become a nurse practitioner worth it? For me, absolutely, positively, yes. I don't think that I would change wanting to go back to school to get my master's. Were there some mistakes or more research and information I could have garnered prior to starting? Absolutely. Would I have chosen a different school? You're darn right, because it probably would have saved me a lot of money and less debt and loans. But again, hindsight is always 2020, and this is very reflective in something that I want you guys to be able to take away. I have been able to give myself career flexibility, and I again, 5 years of reflection, I would do it over again, maybe a different school, make different decisions, less debt, obviously, but it was absolutely worth it. I think the ultimate goal for us is that if you make a career decision that involves education that might take you away from your family temporarily, what is the benefit on the other side going to give you? Is that going to give you financial stability? Is that going to give you more time with your family? Is that going to make you happy? What will make you ultimately happy? Where do you see yourself going after you graduate from school? What is your 5-year plan? What is your 3-year plan? I think a lot of times we just want to go to school, but we really don't think about those things. And then we find ourselves 5 to 10 years later just stuck. Why did I do this kind of situation? Do your research. Understand your financial investment. Understand your time investment and what sacrifices are going to have to be made to be in a nurse practitioner program that you may very well have to work while doing so. There are some people who are able to not do that, but the majority of my peers have had to work throughout their program. It's a great move. And not everybody want to become a nurse practitioner either, honey, okay? And that's okay. You could be a nurse practitioner, whatever. We all work in healthcare. We bound together, bond together. We are a team. And so whatever would make you happy or most happy or thrive in your career, do it. So if you're a nurse practitioner student or considering doing a nurse practitioner program and getting your master's. I definitely want to hear from you in the comments. Sound off. Tell me what you're struggling with. Tell me if you think your nurse practitioner program is worth it. If you're a nurse practitioner, let us know how you feel about where you're at in your journey right now. Also, if you are a person who loves to watch things that showcase balance, I'm a nurse practitioner, but I'm also a mom, I'm a wife. I love fashion. I love to read Black authors and Black romance. I love fragrances and scents, and I love wellness. So if you love those things, definitely like and subscribe. Share this with one of your fellow nurse practitioner students, nurses, or anybody else you think that this information will be valuable to. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate y'all. Stay tuned for the next video. Bye.